YouTube friends. It's good to be with you today. It's the big ice storm day, December 22nd, 2022, and I was just going over a new painting I'm going to start. I thought it might have some points that might interest you. So here we have a street scene with some interesting folks there in London. I love the look of this pose where everybody's just hanging out. It's on this bridge that we saw when we were there. But anyway, when you have something like this that has a background, your subjects, and a foreground, all I do is I mask off. Let me flip back here so we can see. There we go. Okay, there we go. Let me get down to my zoom. Okay, so what I do is, this is a big vertical, so I'm going to have to just shift it around so you can see what I'm doing here. But I just mask off the inside of the subjects, a quarter inch or so. Okay, I just mask off that much, and then I stop it at the border where the wall starts. You know, the wall of the bridge where they're standing. So that way it's separated from my background. So now my background I can freely paint wet into wet and make it, nice juicy colors and everything without worrying about getting into my subjects. Okay, because with the hair and all that, it would be quite a feat to avoid all that while you're painting your background. So now I'm going to flip this upside down because, again, it's a big vertical and I want to have some room to work here and show you what I'm doing. So whenever you flip your painting upside down, of course, flip your reference photo upside down, and you can just keep it right here below the line. Okay, like so. So that way you can use the reference as you're painting. Okay, so first off, we're going to just start with getting our sky in, which is this part right here. Now this has a lot of dark, gloomy clouds in the thing. We're going to put some of those in there, but probably not make it quite as gloomy as it looks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a little water and get that wet. Okay. I'm just going to spread that around. And it goes into the building, that's fine. If we don't like it, we can lift it out of the building, and if we like it, then it just it blends everything together, like this whole background. In fact, I can use my bigger brush. We're going to paint this whole background together, including the buildings and the trees. Like here's the tree. I think I will just wet it all down to start with. You just kind of carefully, I'm not using a teeny tiny brush, but I'm just going on this side of the masking fluid. Okay. Here we go. Just kind of scooping the excess puddles. Got a little hair there. Scooping the excess puddles off of the top. So you're just going to follow this gray-blue line around these guys and gal. Okay. And if some paint even gets through this onto them or something, you can see how colorful these characters are. It's not exactly a huge tragedy. Somehow I think I could meld that color into something and make it look like it was supposed to be there. It's just a hunch. Okay, there we go. So I'm just making sure I got all big puddles off. Got a little dirt on my brush, but that's okay. It's a gray sky anyway. And now I'm going to go into some cobalt blue. And it's stronger than you think. A lot of people, when they do skies, they do them too light to start with. You got to have some decent color on your brush. Okay, so it kind of comes out from this tree. Go down to the building, and then it kind of comes into a little triangle that goes off the page here. Up at the top of the tree here. And again, I'm not worried about the edge of the tree, which is right here. You know, it's going to be green anyway, so if blue goes into it, no big deal. Okay. And now I take my same brush. Well, I'm going to actually use a smaller brush for this. But I get some clean water on it, and then I pull off the excess water, and that's when you can go around and soften the edge. Clean water, pull, soften the edge. Pull this down a little bit. There we go. So you can see up here. But see, this is how you just soften the edge of a sky without messing with it too much. There's that top of that building, so I'm going to take some of that blue out of there. See, a lot of people make the mistake when they do skies of just running a wet brush to soften, but if you take most of the water off, you won't end up with all those blossoms and puddles. So you got to make sure your brush is kind of like somewhat thirsty but not dry. Okay, just picking up some water there. Okay, so that's it. I got the shape of my clouds, but I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna go in and put some grays in here to accentuate the clouds. So I'm gonna pause for a second, and then I'll be back. Okay, and I'm back. So here's our blue now, and it's dry. Okay, and the reason I dry, because a lot of people would say, well, why don't you just put in the gray while everything's wet already? Because I am going to wet everything down again. But if I do that, it doesn't give this a chance to settle into the paper. So you'll end up with really gray looking blues, and you won't keep this vibrancy. So if I wet everything again and not really concentrating water in these areas, it'll keep them more pure. Or if you don't want to go that far, there's another method which is a little safer, and it works just as good. Now I'm going to mix my cobalt with just some mud that's on the bottom of my palette for my grays. Okay, so you can just go in and just put in, I want it to be a little darker, a little more mud. There we go. So you can just go in and put your grays in, like this dark gray cloud right at the top. Okay. Probably should use my bigger brush, but that's okay. And then again, clean water, pull. You can just soften this edge. Instead of painting wet into wet, you can go on to dry paper, but you got to be ready to do this fairly quickly. You can't sit there and paint the gray and fiddle with the shape too much. You have to get it on and get it softened before it dries, because dry paper will dry a lot faster, as we all know. Now in these part of the clouds, I actually like to have, I'm going to meet this up with the blue. I don't mind having a few blossoms and things, but I'm still going to pull most of the moisture off my brush just so it doesn't get out of control. Okay, so there's our first gray cloud. And then I'm going to pick up some more of that mud. And we could put another one. I'm going to go a little different. This one's going this way, so I'm going to go this way, just to keep it interesting. Join that up with that blue. Okay, clear water. Pull the water off with your fingers. And the reason I don't pull the water off with a towel or a sponge, it can take too much water off, where our skin is somewhat waterproof or water resistant. It'll just take off so much. It's not absorbent, I should say, our skin. Okay, so there's our second cloud. Okay, I'm liking the looks of those. Now, like I said, I'm not going to make this quite as dark as that day, but I do want to join these buildings together here, so I'll do one more. And we're going this way. Well, this one will go somewhat straight into these buildings, and then maybe into his hair. Make it fat on this side. Okay, and rinse, pull. And pull. Okay, go right up to that building. Bring it a little past his hair so it doesn't stop right at that point in his hair. Okay. I'm just going to let a little bit of blossoms happen within these clouds. That's already got a couple going. Okay. Then if I get my dry hake brush, this is I think an 1.5 or 2 inch one. Okay, right where that blossom is, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I need to shrink this down. There we go. Okay, now I can get to my zoom. Okay, so right here where see this big blossom is happening right here, you just take your hake brush and you just kind of do this little gentle swoosh swoosh. It'll just soften the blossom a little bit at the edges. but it'll still give the cloud a little bit of shape, like it's got a, like it's rounded. Okay. Scoot that over. Here we go. So can you see that? How it just gives this little round shape within the, same down here. You can just do it side to side since it's a skinny little cloud. There we go. Just so you don't have that hard edge. You don't mind, I mean, like a little bit like right there is okay, but if it was a big circle blossom of hard edge, it might not look too cloud-like. Okay, so and excuse me, so there's our sky, and we can go right in now to our trees and things like that. Now the first thing I would do when I have, again, this is kind of an intimidating subject, is when you go into these trees, okay, there's lots of little different values in there, and a lot of people would spend the time, not a lot of people, but hyper-realists would spend the time actually, worried about the shape of the leaves and things like that. All I do is I get some of my masking fluid. Now this paper is dry at this point. You don't want to put it on damp or wet paper. In fact, I'm going to run a dryer over it for a quick sec, just to be sure. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back, and it's always better to be safe than sorry when you're worried about masking. Okay, here's just an old crummy brush that I keep, and it's been through masking fluid, acrylic, whatever. It's literally what I use to when I want to make strange marks. Okay, like bunches of leaves and things, because it's got longer hairs that can be splayed, like so. I'm just re-splaying them because it was in something before. So anyway, see, it just has nice long hairs that splay easy, and it doesn't go back into its shape too nicely, which would be a bad thing for a watercolor brush. It's also losing hairs. Okay, but it's good for this purpose. So, okay, I'm not even gonna put water on it. I'm just going right into my masking fluid. Okay, and I'm just gonna drop. Actually, let's flicker some first. Okay. Now, if any of these are too big or too, like that one, it might be too big a blotch. I might take some of that out. But you can do that with the corner of your pickup, of your masking pickup, which I don't have mine here right now. And then just don't do them all over. Do them in tiny little bunches here and there. Pardon me, getting over a Thanksgiving cold. Okay, so you just kind of smoosh some stuff in there and make it look like leaves, but not nitpicky leaves. And also, like, I noticed this is picking up a lot of masking today, so I think I softened it too much when I was ungooping it. So here we go, ungooping it. So first dip it in, then we're gonna flick. Oop. There we go. And then just go in where you put those little speckles and just splay some of them out with the brush. And again, you want some near the edge of the sky. Now this is dry, so it doesn't matter, that it goes into the blue. It's not going to hurt it. So we can just flick. And then smoosh. Because along the edge where the tree meets the sky, you should have many bright little leaves and stuff. Now down below, when you get near the bottom, you could put a few down there, but not too many. Like down where this bridge is, you can put like a few in there. This is where the bridge starts over here. I mean the bridge on the other side, I should say, or the walkway. It's a walkway, I think. Okay, and then near her. Now I'm not going to do this near the edge of the page because I don't want all these busy little shapes right near my mat when if I mat and frame this. And make sure you go right into this masking on her, so some of the leaves, so they don't all end right at her head. You know what I mean? That they go behind her. In other words, it looks like some of them go behind her. Okay, smooch. There we go. Just put a couple over there and down below where she is. But see how that's all you need is that 1/4 inch of masking inside the subject, and you can work around them quite easily without having to mask off the entire subject. little drip of water. Okay. So I'm going to clean off my yucky brush. All right, and I'm going to dry that masking. I'm just going to do this one tree for you today, and then I'll get back to work on my painting. Okay, so let me pause this while I dry. Okay, so that's all dry, and I wait for it to cool a bit too, because I use a heating gun instead of a blow dryer. But either way, don't paint over warm or hot masking. Let it cool to the room temperature first, and then, before you put water on it. It's just to be sure it's really dry. Okay, so now for our tree around the girl here. I am not going to use any green, just because I don't like green. Let's see here. I'm going to start out with just a mid-tone, because we've already got our light leaf saved, right? So now I'm going to do like a light medium tone over the entire tree. Then when that's dry, I'm going to just plug in some dark little leaf shapes here and there. And then when I take off the masking, I paint over those with like a yellow green or something, and it gives this nice, three-dimensional look to your trees. So let me do my green first. I'm going into phthalo turquoise. And I'm going to let it mix on the page. So I'm not going to... Let's get the blue right up into the corner. Okay. And then I'm going to go into my quinacridone gold. Just drop it in places. Let the green mix on the paper. Always more interesting. Okay. Should have made it a tiny bit thicker around her face, but we got it. Okay. The masking, I mean. Now I'm just going to tip this away from her face a little bit because it's puddling. Get it moved up to the top here. And that's another thing. Feel free to, when you're mixing on the page, move your paper around and stuff. It doesn't have to sit flat the whole time. Okay, back into my turquoise. Remember, your tree ends right about here. You can see your little leaves the highlighted leaves you saved. So just kind of follow a little crooked path of those. Of course, here's where it ends at the building. Okay. Now there's these little archways kind of peeking through the leaves here. I'm not going to get crazy and thinking about, oh, this is not where one is, or this is where one is. Just kind of paint around them, and we'll find them later, where the arches are. So it's better to paint when you're mixing on the paper. Paint quickly instead of being too particular. And this tree comes right up behind the spike guy here, spike hair guy. So I'm just following my lines loosely. Here's the building. Here's behind his head. Again, see that little bit of masking? It lets you work really fast without having to mask off an entire figure. Okay, let's go back into our gold. And here we go. Let's drop it in. And I am going to do some speckling of leaves outside of this line so it doesn't look like, you'll see the sky peeking through. I'm just not doing that right now because I would have to dry all this again. But I will show the finished piece on Facebook and Instagram if you want to see the finished piece there. But now you know at least how I go about starting these trees. Push that back in there so it doesn't go flying down the page. Okay, just make sure you have a little bit of gold everywhere. This, like I said, this is just our median green color. This is not the end of the tree by any means. We're still going to go in and put in some darks, take off our masking, put in some lights. Okay, but this is like our medium. So it's, you have a light, a dark, and a medium. Okay, let me wipe this down. So there you see it. This is just masking dots in here. That's why I'm not panicking. It's not paint. I don't have to take it off. But I'm just going to smush this line here a little bit. There we go. Okay. So there you go. There's our sky. There's one of the beginnings of one of the trees. And I may do, when I get to the subjects, I might take you along for part of one of the subjects when I get to that on another YouTube. So as always, please make sure that you join or subscribe, I guess is the way to put it, and you'll see my future work on this one and other paintings. So anyway, that is it for today. Stay warm, everybody. I know most of the country is in this icicle mess out here, and I wish everyone a very, very happy holidays. Be happy and paint, even if you can't be with your families, maybe because of the weather. Paint and have fun on your own. All right, everybody take care, and I'll see y'all soon.